Andy Austin here, up in the attic with a bit of a rant. I've been having a look on YouTube this morning. I thought let's just have an update on what therapists and coaches are doing with regards to COVID-19. About a year and a half ago when it all first started, YouTube was awash with all the coronavirus videos, how to deal with coronavirus, how to raise your immune system with whatever the methodology is, how to deal with coronavirus anxiety. That was the big one. And if you just type that in, coronavirus anxiety, into YouTube, go and have a look. There are thousands and thousands of videos. Now, at the time, I put out some blog posts which upset a few people, got me 2 legal threats as well, which I thought was a good score. Let's see if we can get it to 3 with this video. So, here's what we've got. A whole bunch of therapists all looking to cash in on the latest trend. And you may have noticed that therapists and coaches on the internet do tend to move in trends. Whatever is current, whatever the current cool thing is or the in vogue thing is, they all seem to move to that. It's a fad and it's pretty much gone. To illustrate, do you remember when the whole world seemed to be pouring buckets of cold water over their head to raise awareness for something? Just think about it. How well did that work? Do you remember what the thing was that people were pouring ice buckets over their head for? The Ice Bucket Challenge. It was ALS. Many of you will remember the term ALS. But now, all of you who poured a bucket of cold water on your head and uploaded it, what does ALS stand for? What is the condition? How is it treated? Who does it affect? In fact, what can you tell us about ALS without looking it up? So that was a big trend. People jump on that for an opportunity to join in. And it's a good thing. People joining in. It's a movement. I get it. But now we also have the virtue signaling element because I'm doing my bit. I'm helping change the world by pouring a bucket of water over my head in order to raise awareness for something. What was it? ALS. Yeah, what is that? Who knows? Now, these fads go around a lot and people jump on it. Now, therapists and coaches are no different to that. You may remember when Brené Brown, you may not recognize the name, but she gave a YouTube talk on vulnerability. Had a few issues as a result of delivering that talk. What she called a vulnerability hangover, had a bit of a breakdown, and then sometime later went back to do a talk about her talk on vulnerability and shame and her experience in between. Now that then set into motion this whole notion of vulnerability being a thing. And then what we see is all of these coaches and therapists jumping on a bandwagon of vulnerability. Last year, I don't know if this was me that triggered this one, there was a bit of a flurry when everyone was a tarot expert. I did recognize that, oh, hang on, there's a few things going on there, which seemed to follow on from some of the stuff that I had put out previously, but maybe I was jumping on the bandwagon and didn't know. Wasn't me. Now, the coronavirus is the latest one. And this was something that actually is no longer just a passing fad, because way back in, say, last springtime, in the UK at least, people didn't really realise how long this might go on for. And, it'll all be over by the summer. We'll have a lockdown and it's all dealt with, because previous pandemic type situations have never really amounted to a global scale, in our lifetime at least, that people are expecting. Now we're into our second year of this, and it seems to keep getting worse with all the new variants and mutations and stuff coming out. So this is a big problem. But here's the reality. Only a comparative, very small percentage of people are actually affected. I mean, back last year when everyone was an expert on it, all the coaches and NLP practitioners and so forth, putting up their videos on how to raise your immune system and all the rest, it was something like 0.04% of the population had been affected. It's still pretty low. I don't know the exact figures, but it's still not the majority of people. It's still the minority of people being affected. So this gives us still the majority of people have no first-hand experience of it. They see the news reporting, they hear about the protesting and the vaccine objections and all the rest, but they still don't actually have any first-hand experience. So it's very easy for them to dismiss this whole thing. Oh, it's no worse than the flu. It's no worse than the common cold. Because they haven't seen it. They haven't been affected by it. They don't have the long haul symptoms. They haven't been in intensive care. They haven't lost a relative on a ventilator and so forth. And so they can still take this Pollyanna attitude. Now, a new kind of theme is beginning to emerge. It did pop up a little while last year, which was the nature is healing. And you remember that? That vanished very quickly. You notice that? Is that in lockdown, lots of pictures were going up of clean waterways and such forth, where essentially the message that went out, oh, this is nature's healing. This isn't international disaster of unbelievable biblical proportions. Oh no, nature is healing. It's a good thing. And there was almost like this kind of fear is the real virus. Mankind is the real virus. And only when this thing comes along, it wakes us up. This will change how we live for the better. It's a good thing this is happening to us. Really? Well, it's easy to think that when you're sitting in a house that's got a garden and electricity and you've got a nice income and you're protected and you've got a paid-for health system that you don't have to worry about, going bankrupt if you get ill, and actually you're not affected at all. It's very easy to have that attitude, and you're not the one in intensive care or who doesn't have medical insurance if you're overseas, that kind of stuff. Let me just play you this little clip here.
We're going to continue tapping around COVID-19, but we're doing this in a way that is going to help all of us as a species to increase our immunity. Because I am operating from the premise, and I say this in one of my previous videos, that 19, as I call it, is not here to harm us. It is here to help us and to deliver an upgraded immune response for our species. There are other benefits that are happening with this, but we're going to deal strictly with integrating this right now in this video.
Now, I don't mean this to pick on this particular lady. I'm sure she's a very nice lady. She might be a very good therapist. Who knows? And I don't wish to pick on her specifically, it's just that she gives a very good example of this. I collected a whole bunch of other clips from around the web as well that are very, very similar in theme. I may well do other videos on those. I did think about stuffing them all into one video, but then it's just going to be one of those classic YouTube videos of some idiot commentating. I don't want the video just to become one of those videos where some idiot is just commentating on other people's videos just for the hell of getting the views and all the rest of it. So this is quite a good example. Coronavirus is not here to harm us. It is here to deliver a healthy immune system. And this seems to be something that is very, very common amongst the coaching, NLPers, life coaches, alphabet therapists across the board, which is essentially a strong, healthy immune system is built by exposure to diseases, to dirt. Playing in the dirt as a child is worthwhile. It bolsters the immune system, and keeping us safe and locked in and away from contamination is actually the way to damage the immune system. And antibiotics are bad for you, and ventilators are bad for you, intensive cares kill you, and all of those things. And vaccines wreck your immune system, as do antibiotics. That seems to be the recurring motif. Now, people may not be aware, but there was a time when there was no such thing as modern medicine. Antibiotics didn't exist. And generally, there wasn't tap water in people's houses or sewage piping to take the dirt away. There was very much the bucket, the well, and the outdoor hole in the ground. And people lived to a ripe old age of about childbirth. And essentially, life expectancy was appalling. You didn't want to get toothache, but you were going to get toothache. People did their own dentistry, and essentially, sepsis would kill people. Today, you're plucking roses, and tomorrow, you're down with an infection, and next week, you wake up dead with sepsis. Because there weren't the hygiene measures, there weren't the antibiotics, and so forth. And so people's immune systems were challenged on a frequent basis. And yet, what we had was mass global epidemic disease, many of which have been vanished now because of the immunization programs and sanitation and clean water in large parts of the world. And so those epidemic diseases are significantly reduced. Now people forget about that. Now what starts to happen, of course, is now I won't get smallpox. I don't have to worry about smallpox. I'm unlikely to get cholera, unlikely to get typhoid, unlikely to get any of the diseases that we immunize people for. So I won't die of polio, but I might get ill from a polio vaccine in a rare, very rare, considering how many doses are given, side effect or complication of the vaccine. So now, because we immunize everyone, there is no epidemic of polio wiping people out, damaging people for those that survive for the rest of their lives. Now what we have is that risk has been reduced, so the risk is now from the treatment itself that prevents that risk, because it's a comparative thing. So now people worry about vaccines. Now we have this pandemic that's going on that is killing large numbers of people. It is affecting people long term. I'm one of those people myself, and many of us are actually experiencing relatives or other people going into hospital or even dying as well from a result of this disease. This is not delivering a healthy immune system, and a healthy immune system is not developed by being exposed to dirt in the way that these therapists seem to think. Sure, get your children to play in dirt. We know that. We know that works very well in developing immune systems. Raising children in a sterile environment is not conducive to being particularly healthy later on. But that doesn't mean that playing in dirt is going to prevent coronavirus. It also especially doesn't mean tapping your face and saying stupid things like, even though there's a global pandemic, I deeply and completely accept myself. I don't know how anyone would come up with that as a concept to say, well, that's therapy. That's just the absurdest thing ever. But more than that, they'll say you can boost your immune system by eliminating the stress associated with coronavirus. Because if you are stressed, that damages your immune system, you're more likely to get coronavirus. So now the obsession with a lot of the tappers, a lot of the therapists, is around immunity and the immune system. These therapists who have got some ludicrous techniques, tapping technique, for example, as you know, if you watch my stuff, I think it's absolutely absurd, and I give it zero credibility whatsoever. It's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever come across. And if you want to see the worst thing ever, just type in Tappy Bear. Tappy Bear. Just look for it on YouTube, you'll see. And it's just absolutely extraordinary what people come up with. But now, instead of working with mental health stuff, emotions, simple psychological difficulties, they've shifted the market base. The market now is into the immune response and immunity. And so now what we're seeing is a lot of these alphabet therapists are now experts on the immune system. They don't seem to understand how the immune system actually works. They talk about strengthening it or raising it, as though it's a drawbridge that actually keeps out the bad guys and so forth. And let's just say my understanding of the immune system, albeit not perfect, I don't think that operating metaphor that they're using in any way matches what immunity in an organism actually entails. So do have a look on YouTube. Just type in your favorite alphabet therapy and then COVID-19. The old videos, because the rush to put out the videos was when it was still being known by everyone as coronavirus. The ones that have come out since then, more in the last sort of 6 months, everyone's calling it now COVID-19 or COVID. Just type in COVID-19 and then your favorite alphabet therapy. Have a little look. If you find any absolute corkers that you would like to see me comment on, do send me the link. If you post the link in the comment section, quite often because of the spam filters on the commenting, those comments never actually make it through. It shows up at your end. It never shows up at my end. So you may want to just send it over in a direct message or via email. You can find my email address on the websites. I look forward to hearing from you.